So this week, we're speaking about spiritual growth through the discipline of fasting. Now, we already spoke about other things throughout other weeks, and hopefully we can understand on a deeper standpoint why fasting is essential to the Christian life as a spiritual discipline. So this is kind of our agenda. We may touch on the articles and we may not, but we'll just see what happens. We'll play it by ear. Okay, just to reiterate for people who this may be their first time, kind of reiterating that the spiritual discipline is anything that's a consistent habit in your life that no matter the circumstance, it repeatedly brings you back to God. So when we speak about these spiritual disciplines that we're going through throughout these 16 weeks, we're really just attempting to get as close to God as much as possible by disciplining ourselves in different types of aspects of our lives. And the discipline that we're speaking about tonight, is just the spiritual discipline of fasting. And I'll kind of prove to you that fasting is essential for the Christian daily living. Right, so again, we're attempting by the spiritual discipline to transform ourselves and replace all the habits that we have before. And again, we're going to attempt to contextualize this information, which is mainly from the articles. If you didn't receive the articles, you can email me, and through you emailing me, I'm going to give you exactly the articles that we were supposed to have. Okay. Hold on here. Okay. So first we need to understand what is fasting. If you look at the articles that I gave you before, one of them talks about 40 days in fasting. Another one talks about the effect of fasting, the actual benefits of it. And another one is just a small article about fasting as a renewal process of your daily living. But fasting, it has to be something that's voluntary. It's to voluntarily abstain from eating and or drinking for an extended period of time. Now, that extended period of time, as I go through several verses, can be any amount of time. Right? So it doesn't have to be 21 days, such as the Daniel fast that people suggest, or 40 days, such as Jesus' 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. It can be any type of spiritual fast. Right, and we have the biblical definition of what fasting is. So primarily, bullet number one is mainly the definition from a world type of view, which is the world view, which could be from dictionary.com or whatever resource that the world thinks is an absolute. We have the biblical fasting, which is a discipline of voluntarily denying oneself of the basics of eating in order to be available for prayer and communion with the Lord. So the main attribute here that's different in comparison to others is that it's a communion with the Lord. So mainly we're fasting not for weight loss purposes. We're fasting to be closer to the Lord, and the indirect effect of that, of being closer to the Lord, is essentially maybe having better health. And as the article suggests, that I'll show you if some people didn't receive that, is that the effect of the Daniel fast or other types of fasts have been proven to have a lot of health benefits associated with it. And we have the third bullet point there. It says, it is an ultimate act of self-denial. So you're trying to deny yourself from essentially what we rely on daily, which is food. You are simply entering into an intense training of righteousness. So we cannot make ourselves righteous. Only God can make us righteous. But we can considerably attempt to train ourselves through the spiritual discipline of fasting. So now we need to understand, is it even biblical? We need to understand, is it biblical? Is it biblical? Of course it's biblical. In Matthew 6:16, when you look at the verbiage of it, and when you fast, and this is from the English Standard Version, which isn't too far away from the King James Version, but again, I'm not going to use King James Version because I doubt that many of us actually understand King James Version English, so I'll use something more relatable. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites. So we shouldn't attempt to illustrate that we're going through a fast, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. So we shouldn't do something to boast to somebody else that we're actually going through something. But truly I say to you, they have received a reward. So is it biblical? Of course it's biblical, because when we look at the English Standard Words, and when you fast, when is bolded for a reason. I put that bolded for a reason because it's insinuating that you will have to fast at some time in your life. Why? Because it's essentially a spiritual discipline. It's essentially what Jesus went through as well. Okay, just hold on here 1 minute. Okay, and it says, and Jesus said to them, the second bullet point, and Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. So even with the occasion where, remember, Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine at the wedding. So he believes that unions are definitely important, but also what he believes in these unions that you'll still have to fast. So we should be fasting in communion, right? So even at the time where it was great for festivities and everyone is having fun, he still mentioned fasting. And then we need to understand why essentially is it food? Out of all the things it could possibly be, why is it food? Because we need food to live. All of us rely on food in some type of way. I mean, for me, I love food. I can't say that I'm a foodie like that. Like, I'm going to cry if I don't have any food. But essentially, everyone likes good food. And as I state here, the discipline of fasting is designed to separate you from your perceived life support. So the perceived life support that you have daily is through your eating. You believe that you need to eat in order to survive. And God is trying to replace that and saying, hey, instead of needing food to survive, you need meat to survive. That's essentially what you need. Okay, so the Lord is your actual life support. And when we think about food in general, it takes a lot of time to prepare. It's also used for recreational purposes, for fun. So either it be for fun, either it be for actual need. It's something that we do it daily. I mean, it's something so immense that it's $1 trillion industry. So essentially, we all need food. It's kind of like gas in certain metro cities. You need gas to be able to go around, or even the buses and trains. Well, not the trains necessarily, but the buses wouldn't be able to function, right? Or the cabs wouldn't be able to function. So he's trying to take away an essential need that we have and replace it with him, so we can actually understand and conceptualize that out of everything in the world, we should rely on him. We need him every day. And I think there's some certain myths. I know everyone will say that there isn't, and doctors will say something different, but we have loads of studies in general that will say the opposite. So you must have 3 meals a day with snacks in between. Must is essentially saying that without it, you will possibly die. And believe me, not just skipping a few meals a day, you won't die. Okay? It will sap your strength so you can't work. I don't think that God allowed fasting to happen just to sap everyone's strength to the point where they won't be able to function through the purpose that he's actually given them. I think that's incorrect. Will it destroy our healthy body tissue? I don't think it will destroy our healthy body tissue. I think when you take things to the extreme, and I don't think the Lord is looking for extremists, he's looking for those who are just willing to serve him as diligently as possible. So as long as you don't take it to the extreme, I don't believe that it's going to destroy any healthy body tissue unless you state that you have some type of medical condition. If you have some type of medical condition, then I would believe that The Lord understands that you're still willing to serve Him just in different ways, just with a different type of fast, right? And it's not just for bodily purposes, as the world will suggest, as the first definition from dictionary.com was suggesting beforehand. It's actually to gain a closer relationship with God, and you will be able to see this through the verses that will go on to later. So how do we fast? I think these are just some 5 short main thought processes we should have when we're fasting. You should be able to establish a place and time and place. So I think in order to be as diligent as possible, we should be able to say to ourselves every morning at 6 a.m., every morning at 5 a.m., every morning at, or say afternoon at 12 p.m. or at 6 p.m. in the evening, we should be able to allocate that time just for Him. That's how important God is to us. God is so important that we're willing to separate some time just for Him. And in separating our time just for Him, we should be thinking about the type of place that exudes solitude for us. Solitude just meaning a type of silence. So just how Jesus went to the mountains for some silence, a lot of us need to meditate in different ways. So it should be in a way that we're able to allocate time, the proper time, in order to build a closer relationship with Him. And you should separate yourself from everything else in the world in order to build yourself up, in order to meditate, in order to attempt to hear His voice and attempt to hear His calling. And I think what's essential to that is keeping a journal. You need to keep a journal, just like as we referenced last week, keeping a journal of exactly the events that are happening, of how you're growing spiritually, is essential to a fast, because fasting is for a purpose, right? We should be fasting for an exact purpose, whether it be to hear God's voice upon a relationship, to hear God's voice upon an actual job, to hear God's voice upon a direction that we believe we should have, right? We should also prepare our bodies. We're not going to go over that. This lesson is mainly about the importance of a spiritual discipline, but we should be able to prepare our bodies sufficiently so then when we go through the fast, we won't burn ourselves out, right? In order to just start eating or just starting the Daniel fast, for instance, maybe we should prepare our bodies by eating fruits and vegetables, start eating seeds, start eating the nuts, and trying to put that in our basic diet regimen. So then when we start the fast, our bodies aren't just in a constant shock throughout the whole entire time. Right? And number 4, we have creating outcomes. Of course we should create outcomes, because everything in this world has a purpose. Jesus came here for a purpose to save us. God has a purpose for every one of us in our daily lives. We wake up and we have a purpose for the day. Right? So at the end of the fast, it doesn't make sense at the end of the fast that you have no results. Your whole purpose of this fast, of any type of fast, is to have a certain result afterwards, whether it be to hear from God, whether it be to strengthen your prayer, whether it be to protect yourself. It needs to have some certain type of purpose. And with that purpose, it should be something genuine from your heart, something that you truly believe in, something that you believe will be able to push the will of God. And we can fast. So how long should we fast? We can fast for 1 day, we can fast for 1 week, or we can just fast for 1 meal. We can fast from one type of food or from all types of foods, and I'll show you different examples of that. And throughout this fast, or any type of fast, you should be seeking the Lord in Bible study, prayer, and meditation, right? And I think when I think about all the fasts that I do, I fast every Saturday from 12 to 12 for 12 hours, and I don't really think that I spend time seeking the Lord in Bible study and prayer and meditation as much as I should. So when I think about all the things that I may have asked for, maybe seeking guidance and help in, possibly it hasn't happened because I'm not being as diligent as I could. Right? So when you think about your answers that you're seeking from the Lord, Maybe you're not seeking, maybe you're not getting the answer that you need because you're not diligently seeking His face constantly, right? So throughout your fasting, you should be in your word. Throughout your fasting, you should have a certain type of solitude where you're constantly looking for Him, right? There should be a certain type of prayer and meditation that you're constantly going throughout that time. So fasting just one time will be equivalent to having one good workout in the gym. You may feel great for a while, but you will experience new lasting effects in the long term. Right? So, in general, fasting cannot be a one-time event. It needs to be something that's very consistent. Right? It should be as consistent as going to the gym. And you can't expect yourself to go to the gym one time and expect drastic results. So your fasting, please do not expect drastic results on your first couple of times doing it. Right? So I think that's very realistic. When we think about the reflection purpose, after your fasting period, I think you should ask yourself possibly 5 essential questions. I'm sure you may have your own questions as well. But essentially, what are the key lessons learned? Right? What did you learn from your fasting? It's kind of like, well, what are the habits or disciplines that you want to keep? So after you've been through this fasting, is there anything that you've learned so far about yourself that you say, you know what, I want to incorporate this into my daily regimen? Right? So you may be in a physical condition that isn't helping you out too much. Maybe after this fast, you say to yourself, wow, I really have a lot more energy to do a lot more things that I wasn't doing before. Maybe you have a lot more energy to start reading your Bible. Maybe you have a lot more energy to do whatever purpose that the Lord has for you. Maybe the type of habit that you want to keep and discipline that you want to keep is reading your scriptures the way that you were doing out and during your fast. Maybe the habit that you want to keep is maybe praying before you go to sleep a certain type of way or meditating in a certain type of setting. Right? So after this fast, you should have some essential questions that you have in mind that need to be answered. What foods will you begin eating and not eat anymore? Of course, again, just speaking about the energy levels as well. But what dreams and visions, this is I think one of the most important ones, dreams and visions have you seen pertaining to your personal walk with the Lord or your ministry? So in turn, for the spiritual discipline, you're attempting to get closer to God in order to be more Christ-like. Right? So what dreams and vision has He given you throughout this time frame? And maybe if you don't believe He's given you a dream or vision, you should ask yourself, is it that you're just not hearing correctly? Is it that maybe you didn't do anything diligent? Maybe you cheated on your fast, or maybe you just didn't do things as hard as you could have done with other things within your life. So certain types of reflections, I believe, will be able to help you out throughout the fasting process. And I know there's different types of fasts. Probably we haven't heard of these terms, but I was researching some terms, and I've seen that there's something called a normal fast. What is a normal fast? It's just abstaining from all food except water. We have some examples of the normal fast in Matthew chapter 4, verse 2. And it reads, and after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. So relating to Jesus and him being hungry throughout the fast. And I say that he was fasting from all food because technically the verses never mention any water. So Jesus fasted from food for 40 days and 40 nights, but it never states that he fasted from water. So many scholars believe that although he was in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, he at least had probably some fruit juices during that time, because Christians during that time, although they fasted, they did drink some fruit juices. And in Luke chapter 4, verse 2, kind of notes the same thing. For 40 days, being tempted by the devil, and he ate nothing. So he ate nothing during those days, and when they were ended, he was hungry. So it does say he was hungry. It doesn't say that he was thirsty. And possibly he isn't thirsty after 40 days because he drank. Okay, so that's some good information. There's a partial fast. So not abstaining from all food. And in Daniel chapter 1, verse 12, you should all read Daniel chapter 1. It gives a good reasons on why to fast, and that's where we get the term Daniel fast. As it reads, test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. So they didn't abstain from all food. At least they had some vegetables to eat and they had some water. Okay? We have something termed an absolute fast. So what is an absolute fast? It's avoidance of all food and liquids. We do have a supernatural fast. As it says here, when I went up to the mountain to receive the tablets of the stone, the tablets of the covenant that the Lord made with you, I remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I neither ate bread nor drank water. So there's some certain type of supernatural fast that Moses did as well as Elijah did. We have a private fast. The private fast is essentially what we talked about earlier, and how that your fast should definitely be in secret. And as it reads here, and when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, as we stated before. For they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Others, I say to you, they have received a reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So kind of like stop doing things to be seen by others. Right? We have so many organizations that donate loads of money to different charities. And what do they try to do? They promote that. They promote them donating to charities so they can be seen. It's kind of like free advertising for them. But the Lord doesn't want you to freely advertise yourself. He will reward you in secret. We have a congregational fast. Blow the trumpet in Zion, consecrate a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the people, consecrate the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children, even nursing infants. Let the bridegroom leave his room and the bride her chamber. So what are they calling? They're calling absolutely everyone, even the young children that have no idea what's going on, even the bridegroom and the bride when they're trying to indulge in their marriage, even the newlyweds. He's saying, everyone, please fast. We can all fast together. So that's why a lot of churches, they have something called a congregational fast. Right? It's very powerful. We have a national fast. We have in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 3. Then Jehoshaphat was afraid and set his face to seek the Lord and proclaim a fast throughout all of Judah. So national, we can have a national prayer. I believe there's a national prayer day, so maybe we can have a national fast day just amongst ourselves. And in Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 1, it says, now on the 24th day of this month, the people of Israel were assembled with fasting and in sackcloth, and with earth on their heads. So on the 24th day of a certain month, everyone from a certain region fasted, right? Just trying to get closer to God as much as possible. When mostly what we concentrate on is a regular fast. As it says here on the bottom, the second line on Zechariah, thus says the Lord of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th, shall be the house of Judah seasons of joy and gladness and cheerful feast. Therefore love, truth, and peace. So everyone just has a different type of fast. So there isn't just one type of fast. There's many fasts that we can conclude may help us through our times in growing to a spiritual relationship with the Lord. And sometimes we have an occasional fast that's found in Matthew chapter 9, verse 15. And as it reads here, and Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. So exactly going upon the same notion that I stated before, We can fast for an occasion. We can fast because of a wedding. We can fast because somebody is grieving. We can fast on so many different notions. But essentially, fasting is a command because it's guided by it when you fast, not if you fast. Now, how long should we fast? I know that's a burning question amongst a lot of people to understand exactly how long should we fast. The scriptures doesn't exactly say how long we should fast. I think it's something that spiritually you have to kind of think about yourself. You can fast for a partial day, as noted with these type of scriptures in Judges, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, Nehemiah, and Jeremiah. You can fast for one night. You can fast for 3 days. You can fast for 7 days. So as you can see from the scriptures, there isn't just one formula of fasting. It may not be 21 days. It may not be one night. It could be a couple of hours. So it's all dependent upon your spiritual relationship and where you think that it's actually leading you towards. We do have a daily schedule. This daily schedule is just an example that I have of how somebody would possibly fast, right? They may fast in the morning, and through that morning exercise, you would say you're going to have maybe some breakfast, daily Bible study, maybe some Epsom salt throughout your shower or your cold bath, maybe a light walk or a light exercise. You may have a glass of fruit juice, prayer time. And this is just an example. So when we talk about a fast, remember, you can have an absolute fast, you can have a partial fast, you can have an occasional fast. So there's people who look at this fasting type of plan and say that they're fasting, right? Although it does include some food. It includes breakfast, it includes a different type of dinner. Or we can say, for our fasting period, just like as the Daniel fast, maybe just fruits and vegetables and things of that nature. Nuts and berries, right? Well, going on to continuing on how long we should fast, there's also different notions. You can fast for 14 days, 21 days, 40 days, or an unspecified length of time. So in those verses on the bottom, we won't go through them, but there's an unspecified length of time that you can fast. So essentially, how long should we fast? It's all up to you. Now, I'm going to go through 10 top reasons of why I believe we should all fast, right? The number one, well, not the number one reason, just one of the 10 reasons, is to strengthen our prayer life, right? We look at Ezra chapter 8, verse 23, and it says here, "So we fasted and implored our God for this, and he listened to our entreaty." Now, let's think about that English language here. It says here, we fasted. So first they fasted, and then he listened to their entreaty. So sometimes God is there. He sees us, but maybe he's not listening as attentively because we're not fasting. We're constantly praying, and maybe our prayers are going absolutely nowhere because we haven't fasted, right? And let's look at the second example here. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4, it says, "As soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days. And I continued fasting and praying before God of heaven." So they're connecting the weeping and mourning to fasting and praying. So with fasting, you cannot have a great fast without any prayer. Prayer is an essential component of fasting. I'm not going to say that Bible study is an essential part. I think it's a very essential part, but I think fasting without prayer really doesn't make any sense. All right, and our third bullet point, "Yet even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning." Right, so we're weeping, we're mourning, and we want him to return to us, return to our hearts, right? But maybe we haven't fasted. Right? In order to strengthen our prayers, we need to fast. And as it says here in Acts 13:3, "Then after fasting and praying, they laid their hands on them and sent them off." So I believe they're referring to sending off some missionaries at the time. So in order to make it known, just not through prayer, that they were very serious about their missionaries actually completing some work, they said to themselves, okay, you know what, we're also going to fast. So to be as effective as possible, so that our prayers are actually sent off and actually answered, we have to use all of our tools that we have. And possibly all of our tools that we have are fasting and prayer. So in order for him to hear us sometimes, maybe we should sacrifice more than what we're doing. Maybe we should sacrifice more than just getting on our knees and praying for hours and seeking his face. Maybe we should sacrifice our essential need that we have within our lives, which is food. Number 2, to seek God's guidance. When we're seeking God's guidance, I mean, we're praying, we want things to happen, but possibly we're not receiving an answer because we're not fasting correctly. In Judges chapter 20, verse 26, it says, "Then all people of Israel, the whole army, went up and came to Bethel and wept. They sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before their Lord." So it doesn't say that they just wept and mourned and then just prayed. What did they do? They did the ultimate sacrifice that they can possibly do, which was offering their burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And while they were doing so, they still fasted until the evening. So they fasted that day until the evening. It doesn't say they did it for 40 days and 40 nights or 7 days or 3 days. It was a simple fast. It was a partial fast, just like how we said a fast can be for an unspecified amount of time. And what they did is fast until the evening. And we look at Acts 14:23, and it says here, "And when they had appointed elders for them in every church, with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord in whom they believed." And this verse is talking about, in order to know exactly who should be in the leadership positions, they didn't just pray about it, they fasted. When you think about Jesus and him choosing the disciples, he prayed and fasted in order to choose which disciples he wants on his team. Now, when you think about that contextually in your life, how many friends do you actually pray for? Do you ever say to yourself, should this person actually be in my life? So just how these elders are fasting and praying for those who are in the leadership positions, we should be fasting and praying for those who in our basic friendships, in our basic relationships. Why? Because they can be a detriment to our success. Maybe we're not as successful as we can be because we have the wrong people around us. And what we should essentially do is hear a word from God. Hear a word from God so that he can tell us, should this person be in our lives? So just as these elders did as well. We sometimes fast to express grief. It says here in 1 Samuel chapter 31, verse 13, "And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh and fasted 7 days." So mainly they were referring to all the people that they lose in battle. And what they're saying is they're taking these young men that died in battle and taking their bones and burying them under a tree. And because of that, they're grieving with the other families. They're sad because these other families have lost their loved ones. And in 2 Samuel, chapter 1, verses 11 through 12, "Then David took hold off of his clothes and tore them. And so did all the men who were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and for Jonathan his son and for the people of the Lord and of the house of Israel, because they have fallen by the sword." So there's people who are dying every single day, right? So instead of just offering up a prayer, we should be offering up a sacrifice of our daily lives or just our food, right? So we should be fasting and praying to express our grief to people who lose somebody very special to them. In 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 34, and Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had disgraced him. So Jonathan's father, I believe that was King Saul, he was attempting to kill David because David was going to take his place. And Jonathan was very sad at that because he said, you know what, David hasn't done anything. He's just serving the Lord. So Jonathan was fasting because of his feelings for David, right? Because he felt bad that his father actually started to disgrace David for no apparent reason. So we can fast because we're grieving in other types of ways, whether or not somebody has actually passed away. Because we feel sad for a particular reason, maybe we should fast. We should fast to seek deliverance or protection, as it says here in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 3-4. Then Jehoshaphat was afraid and set his face to seek the Lord, and proclaimed a fast throughout all Judah. And Judah assembled to seek help from the Lord. From all the cities of Judah, they came to seek the Lord. So in order to be protected, in order to be delivered from an essential problem that we have, fasting and prayer may actually do it. Right? So it says here, and Judah assembled to seek help from the Lord. Right? So they were seeking help from the Lord, and in seeking help from the Lord, he was trying to make his prayers as potent as possible. And again, how is he making the prayers as potent as possible? Is through the fasting. Right? That's another example there, but we'll move on. To continue this, we have in Esther chapter 4, verse 16, go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf. And do not eat or drink for 3 days, day or night. So there's an example of the 3 days. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So all we can do in life is fast and pray as much as possible. We just have to do our part. And after we do our part, maybe we may be delivered. Maybe we may be protected. It's not a guarantee. But all we can do is our part. And essentially, in Esther, she's just stating, hey, you know what? I'm going to fast and pray, which is essentially the strongest type of prayer that we can have. And I'm going to go to the king, even though I'm not supposed to go to the king. And if I perish, I'm going to perish. So I'm kind of leaving it in the Lord's hands with the final conclusion. But all she understands is that she did the best thing that she could possibly do in order to get the best result, which was her fasting and her praying. We can express repentance and to return to God. On the third bullet point there, it says here, so Jonah arose and went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city. So I bolded that part, exceedingly great city. So I contextualize that information and say, all of us have possibly a great life before us. We have a lot of people who are very wealthy, and maybe they believe that they're exceedingly great. So if you're exceedingly doing great things and you're exceedingly becoming successful, does that mean that you still shouldn't fast and pray? Of course you still have a reason to fast and pray. All right, so it says here, 3 days journey in breadth. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's journey. And he called out, there are 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So even though Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, Nineveh was about to be overthrown. Right? So it doesn't matter how great you are. It doesn't matter how high you are. It doesn't matter how successful you are. Your spot can still be taken, and you can still be overthrown. And it says here, and the people of Nineveh believed God. They called for a fast and put on a sackcloth, from the greatest of them to the least of them. So I bolded greatest and least because it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what level you're on. Right? We should all be fasting. in some type of notion and in some type of way. It doesn't matter if you're the greatest. It doesn't matter if you're the least. We should all be fasting. Jesus fasted, and he's the greatest. We also have somebody who's very beloved by God, which was David, and he says all throughout Psalms how much he fasted. Right? So Jesus fasts, we fast, and we follow him, follow his lead. Another reason to fast is so that we're humbled. We're supposed to humble ourselves before God. And as it says here, and when Ahab heard those words, he tore his clothes and put sackcloth on his flesh and fasted and lay in sackcloth and went about dejectedly. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the disaster in his days. Wow. To me, that was amazing. Because this verse is essentially saying, because Ahab humbled himself through his fasting, he was not going to get the disaster that the Lord had planned prior. So whenever the Lord has something in mind, it isn't that God changes, right? God doesn't change. He's still all-knowing. He's still all-powerful. His characteristics do not change. But can God take away a thought process that he had before based on our actions? Absolutely. We can look at several verses in the Bible for that. And this is just one of them. Because he acted humbly, what God was going to do afterwards, he didn't do anymore. Right? So he didn't bring the prior disaster that was planned before because he humbled himself. So probably our fasting, probably our prayers, probably all of our sacrifices can get us to the point where whatever bad thing that was going to happen to us before, we talked about protection before, may not happen because we've given him the ultimate sacrifice we can actually give him. And as it says here in Luke chapter 18, verse 9 through 12, it talks about the Pharisee and the tax collector, and in bold there on the 5th line, we talk about he fasted twice a week. And he's relaying this information to kind of boast about everything that he's going through. Oh, you know what? In comparison to everyone else, wow, I fast twice a week. Well, so what if you fast twice a week? You have more work to be done. Right? The second to last sentence there, for everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. So the Lord is looking for some humble individuals in order to carry out his work. To express concern for the work of God. So in Daniel chapter 9, verse 3, we can see that it states, then I turned my face to the Lord, seeking him by prayer and pleas for mercy and fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And we're going to look at Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 3 to 4, and it says, and they said to me, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are destroyed by fire. As soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days, and I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. So there's certain things that are going on around Jerusalem, and because they're going on around Jerusalem, Nehemiah, she's sad about this. She's weeping, she's mourning. And because of it, because she has a great concern for the work of the Lord, she starts fasting and praying. We should be able to fast and pray just to minister to the needs of others. Right? So I've heard several people tell me that in their church, the way that they fast is if they fast for, say, a meal on Sunday, the money that they would usually use for that meal, they give it to the needy. Right? So that's a good way to fast. That's a good way to minister to the needs of others. And it says here in Isaiah 58, verses 6 through 7, it is not this the fast that I choose to loose the bonds of wickedness. So think about just what your fast will do. It's stating here, it's going to loose the bonds of wickedness. So if you're looking to take care of certain addictions that you have, looking to take care of any notions that you want to get out of your mind, right? Maybe fasting will help it. It's going to be able to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke that you feel like is still pulling on you. It's gonna allow you to be set free, right, and to break every yoke that you have in your mind. All the past relationships that hurt you, it's going to allow you to get it out of your mind. It's going to allow you to take care of all the hurt that somebody has ever said to you. Take care of all the hurt that possibly your absentee father has given you, right? Trying to release those bonds, release those transgressions in your mind, right? As it states, is not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house. So that's part of it. When you see the naked, to cover him, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh. So throughout your process of fasting and praying, you should be giving to others. You should be ministering to others. Although we speak about solitude, you shouldn't confine yourself to a little spot and never come out. Right? Your whole goal of being Christ-like too is still helping others throughout the whole process. Why? Because we shouldn't be boasting about this fast anyway. Right? Somebody should just be able to see the results of us actually doing God's work. In Isaiah chapter 3, I guess I put it wrong there. I forgot where it actually is. I can email you that. But why have we fasted and you've seen it not? Why have we humbled ourselves and you take no knowledge of it? Behold, in the day of your fast, you seek your own pleasure and oppress your workers. So throughout our fast, we should be treating everyone well. We should be treating everyone well in general, but we definitely should be treating everyone well throughout our fast as well. All right, so we're supposed to minister to the needs of others. Number 9, to overcome temptation and to dedicate ourselves to God. Right? We can look at Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. And we have some certain bolded notes here, and it says here, and after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, again, he was hungry. And in the middle there, which is one of my favorite verses, is that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Right? So we shouldn't be living just by our food. I mean, that's very carnal. Right? Because we essentially need food to attempt to survive, but the father of us even being alive today is God, right? So first of all, we should be able to seek him throughout everything that we do. We should be able to rely on him, and after we rely on him, food is secondary, right? So as it says here on the bottom, begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Then the Lord left him, and behold, angels came and were ministering to him. So when did Satan leave? Satan left after Jesus was able to script some parts of Scripture and kind of tell him, based upon that he is in the right. So with that being said, in order for some evil things to come out of our lives, we have to have knowledge. And that's why the first week we talked about studying the Word as a spiritual discipline. Without knowing your Word, without studying your Word, you have no armor against the enemy. He'll be able to trick you. He wasn't able to trick Jesus at this standpoint because Jesus understood the Scriptures. So in order for Satan to be removed from our lives as much as we can possible, we have to know the Word, because it's the Word that Jesus gave that made Satan go away. So as it says here, then the devil left him. And then afterwards, we're going to be comforted. We're going to be comforted by these angels that are in heaven because they see us fighting our spiritual warfares with the Word, what we're supposed to be doing. and essentially we will be strengthened because of it. And another reason, to express love and worship God. There was a young lady in Luke chapter 2, verse 37, who was a widow. At that time, we're assuming by the scriptures, and many scholars believe that she was probably married about 7 years. And after those 7 years of being married, she became a widow. And it says here in Luke chapter 2, verse 37, and then as a widow until she was 84. Right? So we can say at that time, a lot of them were getting married at about 13 years old, 13, 14. Right? So from that, we can say that maybe she became a widow at about 21. So about 5 decades of being alone, right, as a widow. As it says here, and then as a widow until she was 84, so about 5 decades. She did not depart from the temple, worshiping and fasting and prayer night and day. Wow. So this person was seeking God so much that they just worshiped and fasted with prayer night and day. Right? So let's not assume that she didn't eat for all of these years, but she fasted in some type of way night and day. Maybe for a few hours, maybe for a couple of days, well, who knows? But this is what she did. She fasted and prayed night and day. And we can say that the ending conclusion is to express love and worship God. We're essentially saying by taking this food out of our lives that it is our master. God, you are our master because this food, this little sacrifice is really nothing to me. Right? Food is not our God. My Lord, you are more important. So this is the way I'm going to express my love and worship you, is that I'm going to sacrifice the very thing that kind of keeps me going every day. I'm going to sacrifice the very thing that possibly I like the way that it tastes. Right? Because you are my God and nothing is going to come before you. So what's our conclusion here? Fasting without a purpose is just a weight loss fast. Because it's just self-centered. You're just thinking about yourself. Fasting is a mandate, as we stated before, with all these different examples, with these 10 examples, with any type of example that I've illustrated today with these verses. It kind of comes up to the conclusion that fasting, we're supposed to fast. I don't know why a lot of churches or other organizations haven't really recognized this, but definitely fasting is supposed to happen. And an example of this is because Jesus sacrificed and fasted, therefore we have to sacrifice and fast as well. All right. So that's kind of my information here. I know we have, it's 9:54 on my clock, and what we can say is here, we have about 6 minutes. So within that 6 minutes, let's try to look at some things that I sent here. Again, if I didn't send this to you, you can just email me and I'll surely send it to you. Right? I think I like this article right here. It's speaking about the effect of the 21-day Daniel fast on metabolic and cardiovascular disease risk factors in men and women. And a little bit of the background that I have highlighted here is dietary modification via caloric restriction is associated with multiple effects related to improved metabolic and cardiovascular health. So this article is kind of proving that Daniel fast will increase our health, right? And certain things that I noted here, let's see. Okay, it does have some biblical references, which I like, which I highlighted for all of you. It does talk about some measures and some results. And here are some of the results. Most subjects reported that they would continue implementing many components of the plan into their previous diet. So people who actually did the Daniel fast, they said that they would probably do it again. In addition to planning and preparing meals, were the most challenging components of the fast. So they're saying it was very challenging. So any type of fasting in our lives is going to be very challenging. And if it isn't challenging, then maybe we should switch our our methodology of how we actually approach the fast. As it says here, repeatedly that the forced review of foods labels significantly increased our knowledge and awareness of the kilocalorie content and macro and micronutrient composition of foods, as well as the inclusion of additives and preservatives. So it's kind of saying what they did and not did within the fast, right? Let's see here. We can see on this left-hand side, we can see actual factual information here. It says the mental, in Table 1, the mental and physical health of the differences pre and post the fast. So I'm not going to say there are significant differences in every aspect, but after 21 days, there were differences within the fast. Right? We can look at that too. As it says here, some great points. Here's the results of the fast for most people. Results from the present study indicate that a 21-day Daniel fast, so in just 21 days, it says significantly reduces. Think about that word significantly. That means a lot. Significantly reduces systolic and diastolic, hold on here, blood pressure. So we talk about all of our high blood pressure, all of our hypertension that we have, and maybe if we fasted, it can be decreased. Number 2, as far as benefits, it significantly reduces total LDL and HDL cholesterol. I know I have a lot of bad cholesterol. I've been having bad cholesterol since 7 years old, so I'm going to try out this Daniel fast and see the results pre, during, and probably afterwards to see what can actually happen from it, and increasing my spirituality with the Lord. Right? It's going to reduce the insulin. Number 4, it's not going to cause any negative effects on the blood count or metabolic panel values. It's going to be well tolerated, and essentially, there's nothing bad too much that's going to happen from a Daniel fast as long as you know what the heck you're doing. Okay, and as it says here, a wide variety of individuals may benefit from a dietary approach in accordance with the Daniel fast. So they're saying that, they're already saying this. This is some doctors saying this. This isn't theologians, right? Doctors are saying from their studies that a fast is going to benefit a dietary approach to everyone's daily life. And as it says here on the right hand, there were a lot of percent changes. And as it states here, who exercise regularly for 4+ hours per week and eat a very clean diet. So the very clean, we're speaking about the Daniel fast, on a regular basis, including vegetarians, as compared to overweight, obese, sedentary subjects who consume a relatively poor diet. So there was drastic percent changes in these people who were involved in the study. So we have decreases such as 19% in just 3 weeks, right? 19% reductions. So the 19% reduction is from the blood pressure. The 23% is from the LDL cholesterol, right? So a decrease in HDL cholesterol. Decrease, let me see here. In proteins, let me see. So I think one of the other notions I have here, so in conclusion with this article, as it says, in particular, such studies may include patients with diagnosed metabolic, prediabetes and diabetes, and cardiovascular disorders, hypertension and hypercholesterolemia. As such individuals may experience clinically relevant results manifesting in improved disease prognosis. Wow. So these people are already concluding that people who have diabetes, this type of fast is going to help you. If you have any cardiovascular disorders, with hypertension, with any type of stress, with any type of massive headaches that you have, maybe some migraines, right? If you change your diet accordingly, that something great may happen, right? And I know there were some other articles that I had here. If you didn't receive this one too, you can just tell me. It's talking about the spiritual discipline and how you're going to use it as a renewal. And I believe I had another one. Yeah, I gave you guys another one speaking about the 40-day fast. So again, if you didn't receive some of them, you can just let me know, and I will surely give it to you. And I guess that is it this evening. And maybe I can unmute this if everyone can put themselves on mute, and maybe we can have some people that have some people who are going to ask some questions. I'll try them as much as possible. Right, so hold on here.
You are now unmuted.
Okay, now there's some people who are unmuted. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, everyone shy? No one wants to be first?
Yeah, I'm kind of shy today. I do have a question that I do want to ask, but I think it's a lengthy. It would be a lengthy discussion, so I would prefer to send you an email and have you follow up if you can.
Oh, okay. I can do that as well. Let me see here. Well, I'm looking to see if there's any questions on here. Because you can do like a question and answer online. Let me see if there's any particular questions. So somebody says, what do you recommend for those who do struggle with physical pains of fasting? I know fasting is definitely on another level, especially when you talk about something like the Daniel fast, when you're not used to just eating vegetables and seeds and nuts. And that's the whole challenge of it all. All we can do is essentially just try.
You are now muted.
Right, so in trying the best in what we have, maybe if somebody's struggling with the physical pangs of fasting, maybe we shouldn't do it straight a 21-day fast or maybe a 30-day fast. Maybe we just have to do it little by little. So that may be for a couple of hours. Once you build up from a couple of hours, maybe you'll do 12 hours, and then you'll do 18 hours, and then you'll do a day. So I think with anything, it's very hard to have drastic changes within our lives in anything. So I think just going on little by little throughout your fast, and with the examples, a fast is still considered a fast if you're able to withstand yourself for a certain amount of time. So going little by little will be able to develop your persistence level, your type of perseverance. Okay. Hold on here.
You are now unmuted.
Yeah, does anyone have any more questions?
Thank you, because I couldn't recall the question that I typed.
All right, no problem.
Bye.
Oh, okay, well, bye, everyone. See you next week. Have a good day. So everyone email me if you have any questions. Thanks.